My apologies, folks, but this episode is a bit poppy. I've been working on improving the audio quality of the podcast, but this episode was kind of a step backward. Enjoy the show as is. Welcome back, truth seekers, to another episode of Broadcasting Seeds, where we dig deep into the strange, the unexplained, and, let's face it, the downright bizarre. I'm your host, Bennett Tanton, here to sprinkle a little curiosity into your holiday season, like powdered sugar on a Christmas cookie, except, less sweet and more unsettling. Now, Christmas. For most, it's all about joy, peace, family, and, if you're lucky, a strong eggnog. But what if I told you that beyond the twinkling lights and sentimental Hallmark movies, there's a darker side to this season? I'm talking hauntings, folks. Ghostly apparitions by the Christmas tree, phantom carolers in the snow, and mysterious bumps in the night that definitely aren't Santa coming down the chimney. Yep. Turns out, Christmas might not just be for the living, it could also be prime time for the dead. Tonight, we're diving headfirst into the phenomenon of Christmas night hauntings. What makes this season such a hotbed for paranormal activity? Why do ghosts seem to get their festive freak on when the rest of us are hanging stockings and binging gingerbread? And most importantly, what can these spirits teach us about the season and ourselves? We'll unpack historical cases, modern encounters, cultural connections, and even some wild theories about why the holiday spirit might just include actual spirits. By the end of this episode, you might never look at a silent night the same way again. So grab your cocoa, lock the doors, and maybe keep a flashlight handy because it's going to get spooky. Let's dive in. Let's kick things off by dusting off the old history books, or maybe the ghost stories scrawled in the margins. Hauntings during the Christmas season aren't a new phenomenon, folks. This isn't just modern paranormal enthusiasts looking for an excuse to whip out their EMF meters under the mistletoe. Nope. The connection between ghosts and Christmas has been around for centuries. Let's start with our old friend Charles Dickens. His 1843 novella, A Christmas Carol, is probably the most famous example of ghostly Yuletide tales. Ebenezer Scrooge gets the scare of his miserly life, courtesy of the spirits of Christmas past, present, and future, not to mention the ghost of his dead business partner, Jacob Marley, who kicks things off with chains clanging like an after-hours Christmas concert. But Dickens wasn't pulling this idea out of thin, foggy Victorian air. He was tapping into a long-standing tradition of ghost stories being told during the holiday season. Back in Victorian England, people gathered around the hearth on dark winter nights and swapped tales of the macabre, kind of like their version of campfire stories, but with way more corsets and cravats. The cold, dark, and quiet of winter was thought to bring people closer to the spirit world, making Christmas the perfect time for a ghostly tale or a real encounter. Take, for instance, the story of the Mistletoe Bride. This legend, which dates back to at least the 17th century, tells of a young bride who decided to prank her guests during her Christmas wedding by hiding in a chest. Only the chest accidentally locked, and no one could find her. Decades later, her skeletal remains were discovered, still in her wedding gown, and some say her ghost continues to wander the halls of Bramshill House in Hampshire, England, every Christmas Eve, searching for her lost groom. Talk about a holiday gone wrong. And it wasn't just England. Across Europe, there are countless stories of spectral visitors during the 12 days of Christmas. In Germany, there's Frau Perchta, It's a supernatural figure who's either a benevolent gift giver or a terrifying Christmas demon, depending on how clean you kept your house that year. Think of her as a cross between Santa Claus and a vengeful spirit with a penchant for punishment. Even in early American history, there were accounts of ghostly happenings around Christmas time. One particularly chilling tale comes from the late 1800s when a family in Pennsylvania claimed to see the ghost of their deceased matriarch every year on Christmas Eve. She'd appear near the fireplace, her spectral hand reaching out as if trying to stir the coals. The family believed she was trying to guide them through some unfinished business, or perhaps just checking on who got what in the will. Now, was this just the long dark nights of winter playing tricks on people's minds? Or was there something deeper at work, a sort of seasonal alignment that brought the spirit world a little closer to ours? Hold on to that question because we'll dig into those theories a little later. But one thing's for sure, ghosts and Christmas have been haunting each other's dance cards for centuries. All right, let's bring things into the present, or at least as present as a ghost sighting can get. The idea that the dead might enjoy a little holiday mingling isn't stuck in the Victorian era. Modern-day Christmas ghost stories continue to pile up like presents under the tree, and if you thought they'd lost their edge, think again. Let's start with one of my favorites, the tale of the Phantom Christmas Visitor. In 1975, a family in Chicago reported a chilling encounter on Christmas Eve. After their festivities wound down and everyone was asleep, the father of the family claimed he awoke to the sound of footsteps on the stairs. Naturally, he thought it might be one of his kids sneaking a peek at the presents. But as he made his way to the staircase, he saw something, or someone, that wasn't on the guest list. Standing at the base of the stairs was a tall, shadowy figure wearing what appeared to be a long, old-fashioned coat and hat. The figure turned toward the father, nodded as if acknowledging him, and then disappeared into thin air. The man swore he wasn't dreaming, and over the years, the family has reported similar sightings every Christmas Eve. Who was this mysterious figure? A long-lost relative, a previous homeowner, or just an overcommitted caroler from the beyond? Another eerie story comes from a woman in Maine who, in 2008, claimed to have heard Christmas carols coming from outside her home at around midnight on Christmas Eve. She lived in a rural area, no neighbors for miles, and was puzzled by the sound. When she opened her door, she saw a small group of translucent figures holding lanterns and singing. She was too shocked to approach them, and they faded away after a few minutes. She described the carolers as looking like they stepped out of a Charles Dickens novel, complete with cloaks and top hats. The next morning, she found no footprints in the freshly fallen snow. Her account went viral in paranormal forums, with theories ranging from time slips to wandering spirits reliving old holiday traditions. And if that's not enough to make you reconsider opening your door on Christmas Eve, how about this one? In 2012, a family in Texas reported seeing their late grandmother appear during their Christmas dinner. As they gathered around the table, the youngest child suddenly pointed toward the empty chair that had always belonged to Granny. The family dismissed it as a child's imagination until other family members started feeling a cold presence in the room. Some even claimed they saw a faint outline of the grandmother's face in the reflection of a nearby window. Was she there to join in the family traditions one last time? Or did her spirit linger as part of some unresolved family tension? Now, skeptics might say these sightings are just figments of the imagination, fueled by the heightened emotions of the season. After all, Christmas is a time when we reflect on loved ones we've lost, and maybe that makes our minds a little more open to their presence, or at least more willing to see them where they aren't. But can we really chalk all of these up to overactive imaginations when multiple witnesses in the same family report seeing the same thing, or when events leave physical clues like unexplained cold spots or missing footprints in snow? It feels like there's something more going on. And here's the kicker. Reports of Christmas hauntings seem to be on the rise in recent years, perhaps fueled by the increasing accessibility of ghost hunting tools like EMF detectors and spirit boxes. Social media has also amplified these stories, with photos and videos of supposed ghostly encounters being shared widely. Though, let's be real, some of those photos might just be Uncle Joe's reflection after too much eggnog. So, what's fueling these modern encounters? Is it simply the season's emotional charge, or could there be a deeper reason why the holidays seem to draw the dead closer to the living? We'll tackle those theories next. All right, folks, let's get into the why. Why does Christmas of all time seem to encourage the dead to RSVP to our holiday celebrations? What is it about this season that seems to create a hotspot for supernatural activity? As it turns out, there are some fascinating theories, and trust me, it's more than just ghosts love eggnog. The first theory revolves around emotional resonance. Think about it. Christmas is a season drenched in nostalgia. We're surrounded by family traditions, heirlooms, and memories of loved ones who've passed on. It's a time when we naturally reflect on the people we've lost, whether it's through hanging an ornament that reminds us of them or simply wishing they were at the table with us. That emotional energy, some say, could act as a beacon for spirits. It's like lighting a metaphysical flare, inviting those on the other side to come closer. Another theory ties into the spiritual significance of the season. Christmas, after all, celebrates the birth of Jesus Christ, a deeply spiritual and sacred event for millions. Many believe that the heightened focus on faith and spirituality during this time creates a sort of bridge between the physical and spiritual realms. Some even compare it to Halloween, when the veil between the worlds is thought to be thin. If Halloween is about honoring the dead, Christmas might serve as a time for them to revisit the living. There's also the idea of unfinished business. Ghost lore often centers around the concept that spirits linger because they have something unresolved. The holidays, with their emphasis on family forgiveness and connection, might stir up these lingering ties. A spirit might show up to resolve a family feud, share a message they couldn't deliver in life, or simply soak in the love of a season they cherished. And then we have the energy theory. The holidays bring with them a surge of activity. More people in one house, more emotions running high, and, let's not forget, a spike in electricity usage. Paranormal investigators often claim that spirits are drawn to energy, using it to manifest. Think of all the Christmas lights, buzzing ovens, and blinking toys as a sort of buffet for ghosts. It's like their equivalent of an all-you-can-eat holiday dinner. Finally, let's talk about time slips, a more speculative but wildly fascinating idea. Some researchers in the paranormal field suggest that time isn't as linear as we think. During moments of heightened emotion or tradition like Christmas, we might experience what they call a time slip, where echoes of the past bleed into the present. That could explain sightings of Victorian carolers or long-deceased relatives appearing as if they're just passing through. Maybe they're not ghosts in the traditional sense, but fragments of another time, replaying themselves like a holiday rerun. Now, here's the kicker. These theories aren't mutually exclusive. A Christmas haunting could be a combination of emotional energy, spiritual alignment, and a touch of unresolved drama. After all, If you're going to haunt someone, why not choose the time of year when people are most likely to notice and maybe even welcome you? Cue a soft transition of bells chiming in the distance. So, whether it's faith, family, or physics, something about Christmas seems to set the stage for the supernatural. But what about the global perspective? Do other cultures have similar tales of holiday hauntings? That's coming up next. All right, truth seekers, let's take a quick trip around the globe and explore how other cultures experience the eerie side of the holiday season. Spoiler alert, it turns out Christmas isn't just a time for warm cocoa and good cheer, it's also when spirits and supernatural entities seem to punch in for overtime. Let's start with Iceland, home of the downright spooky Yule cat, or as they call it, Jólakötturinn. Now, this isn't your friendly neighborhood feline. According to Icelandic folklore, the Yule cat is a massive, ferocious creature that prowls the snowy countryside during the Christmas season. Its targets? People who didn't receive new clothes before Christmas. That's right. This ghostly feline doesn't just haunt, it hunts the poorly dressed. On a deeper level, it was likely a tale to encourage productivity during the winter months, but to this day, many Icelanders swear there's something unsettling about dark, snow-covered nights when the wind howls like a cat's growl. Next, we have Germany and the legend of Frau Perchta. She's a figure from Alpine folklore who's as likely to hand out gifts as she is to deliver, let's call it divine retribution. Frau Perchta is said to visit homes during the 12 days of Christmas. If you've been good and kept your home in order, she'll reward you. But if you've been slacking, well, she might leave something far worse than coal in your stocking. Some accounts describe her as ghost-like, appearing as a pale, spectral figure who knows all your secrets. To this day, tales of strange noises and ghostly apparitions in German homes during Christmas are often attributed to Frau Perchta making her rounds. Heading to Mexico, we find the tale of La Llorona, or the Weeping Woman. While La Llorona is usually associated with general hauntings, there are stories of her ghostly wails being heard more frequently during Christmas. Some believe it's because the season brings up memories of her lost children, the focus on family and togetherness intensifying her sorrow. Families in rural areas sometimes report hearing her cries on Christmas Eve, a chilling reminder that not all spirits celebrate the holidays with joy. Let's move over to Japan, where Christmas is celebrated in a uniquely secular way. While Japan isn't known for Christmas-specific ghost stories, it does have its share of eerie tales tied to winter. For example, the story of the Yuki Onna, or Snow Woman, has parallels to Christmas hauntings. This spectral figure appears during snowstorms, luring travelers into the cold with her ghostly beauty before vanishing, leaving her victims lost in the frost. Her legend aligns with the themes of winter and solitude that often accompany Christmas ghost lore. And finally, let's touch on the Philippines, where the holiday season is celebrated with vibrant festivities. Yet, there are also tales of the White Lady, a common figure in Filipino folklore, making appearances during the long Christmas nights. White ladies are said to be spirits of women who died tragically, often tied to specific locations like old roads or abandoned houses. During the Christmas season, people report seeing these spectral women near decorated streets, as if they're drawn to the warmth and light they lost in life. Across the globe, there's a recurring theme. The holiday season doesn't just belong to the living. Whether it's a vengeful spirit, a legendary figure, or a ghost from long-forgotten traditions, something about Christmas resonates with the supernatural. Maybe it's the universal focus on family, tradition, and the passage of time. Or maybe these stories remind us that the world is more interconnected and mysterious than we think. Up next, we'll examine one of the most influential stories tying ghosts and Christmas together and how it shaped modern perceptions. All right, folks, let's talk about the OG of Christmas ghost stories, A Christmas Carol. You can't discuss holiday hauntings without tipping your hat to Charles Dickens and his iconic tale of Ebenezer Scrooge, Jacob Marley, and the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future. But this isn't just a story about a cranky old miser learning the error of his ways. Oh no, Dickens was doing something much deeper, and dare I say it, a little paranormal. First off, let's give credit where it's due. Dickens didn't invent the concept of ghostly Christmas stories. As we've discussed, Victorian England already had a thriving tradition of telling ghost tales by the fireside during the holidays. What Dickens did was take that tradition, mix it with social commentary, and sprinkle it with enough supernatural chills to make it unforgettable. Now, here's the kicker. A Christmas Carol isn't just a ghost story, it's a mirror. The ghosts in the story are more than just spooky apparitions. They're manifestations of Scrooge's guilt, regret, and potential. Each spirit drags him through time, showing him what was, what is, and what could be. The result? A transformation so profound it practically glows with the holiday spirit. But think about it. Doesn't that sound eerily similar to what people describe when they claim to see ghosts during the holidays? Spirits appearing to deliver a message, remind us of the past, or warn us of the future. Dickens didn't just write a story, he tapped into a universal experience. Let's break it down. First, we've got Jacob Marley, the archetype of the tormented ghost. He's a warning, dragging literal chains forged by his earthly greed. How many Christmas hauntings have a similar vibe? Spirits tied to unresolved earthly issues showing up to remind the living to get their act together. Marley's visit is classic ghost lore wrapped in a shiny Victorian bow. Next, the ghost of Christmas past. This one's fascinating because it's not just a ghost, it's a time traveler. It drags Scrooge through memories he'd rather forget, much like how many holiday hauntings are described as echoes of the past. People often claim to see ghosts replaying old routines like phantom carolers or long-deceased relatives sitting at the holiday table. Dickens captured that sense of nostalgia and regret that haunts us all during the season. Then there's the ghost of Christmas present. It's less a ghost and more an ethereal tour guide pulling back the curtain on the here and now. How many hauntings are tied to the present, where a spirit shows up to make its presence known, not necessarily to frighten, but to remind? This ghost message is simple. Wake up and appreciate what you have before it's too late. Finally, the ghost of Christmas yet to come. Let's be honest, this is the one that gives everyone chills. Cloaked, silent, and pointing toward a grim future, it's the classic warning ghost. Think of all the paranormal tales where spirits appear to deliver prophetic messages. Dickens wasn't just writing fiction, he was channeling a deep human fear of the unknown and our desperate hope to change it. But here's the real genius of Dickens' work. He used ghosts not to terrify, but to transform. They're catalysts for growth, redemption, and second chances. And isn't that what many of us hope for when we think about the supernatural? Not just a glimpse into the beyond, but a chance to make sense of it all, to learn something we can carry forward. Dickens' A Christmas Carol became so influential that it practically cemented the idea of ghosts and Christmas in our collective psyche. Today, We can't think of Christmas without at least a passing nod to the spiritual, the nostalgic, and yes, the ghostly, whether it's the warmth of a loved one's memory or the chill of a phantom presence. The story reminds us that Christmas is a time for reflection and maybe even a little supernatural reckoning. So, whether you're visited by the ghost of Christmas past or just the creak of an old floorboard in the dead of night, Dickens taught us one thing. There's always a chance for redemption, even if it comes wrapped in a ghostly package. Now that we've explored the history, modern encounters, cultural influences, and literary connections, it's time to wrap this up with some final thoughts. There we have it, folks. Christmas night hauntings. From the spectral footsteps of the past to the ghostly carolers of today, this season proves it's not just about sugar plums and stockings. It's about connection between the living, the dead, and the thin line that seems to blur just a little more during the holidays. Whether you believe these stories are echoes of the past, warnings from the beyond, or just a trick of the winter wind, one thing is clear. There's something profoundly human about searching for meaning in the mysteries of this season. Maybe, just maybe, the ghosts of Christmas aren't here to scare us, but to remind us to treasure the people around us, to reflect on the paths we've walked, and to make the most of the time we have. Because if the dead can show up to deliver those messages, what's stopping us from taking them to heart? So as you head into the holiday season, keep an open mind. Pay attention to those little moments that might feel off. The strange sound by the fireplace, the flicker of a light, or the feeling that you're not alone. Maybe it's nothing, or maybe it's your very own Jacob Marley swinging by to remind you what really matters. Before you go, if you enjoyed this episode, or if it gave you a chill or two, do me a favor. Like, share, and review the podcast. It helps broadcasting seeds grow and reach more people curious about the strange and unexplained. Spread the word like a Christmas miracle, or, like a ghost story by the fire. Until next time, keep questioning, keep exploring, and remember, the truth is out there even during the most wonderful time of the year. Merry Christmas, everyone. And if you hear something go bump in the night, maybe it's just Santa, or maybe it's not.
I got bad thoughts that make my mind scared, hold me hostage and they don't fight fair. Who gon' pray for me and wipe all my tears? Who gon' save me if you not right here? Move this darkness and make my sight clear. Take me away cause I don't like here. Ghosts of my past, they feeling the night air. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, I'm trapped in my nightmares. Drowning, I'm off the deep end. Apparitions of all my demons. All my thoughts are committing treason. All alone, who gon' hear me screaming? Manifestations of my fears, regrets that stretched out for light years. Can almost touch the light, homie, it's right there. Body free but trapped in my nightmares. Wake me up, don't let me drown. All the lights are fading